Hey y'all, it's Nancy, the Handy Scandy. Thanks for joining me for yet another crafty venture. Today I am with Sassy and Crafty, and I'm making this sweet monochromatic card with the You're a Hoot stamp set, and I'm also using 3 different stencils from Sassy and Crafty as well. So you can see there's the stamp set, there is the Trippy Stripe stencil, the Sailor Stripe stencil, and then the chevron, and I use those in very subtle ways on the cards, but you know I got to use a stencil. Then I have my slimline card base, my card panel that is already die cut with a slimline die from my stash, and I had an oval mask that is just from my stash. Now you can use any kind of mask that you have, you can use any shape that you want, you can make your own mask from die cutting, you know, with your dies, or you can use a die cutting machine such as a Cricut or a any type of scanning machine like that. Lots of different ways that you can make a mask, right? You can even just tape it off using some post-it tape or some not printer's tape, just regular old painter's masking tape. Lots of different ways that you can make a mask. For me, I have the ovals in my stash, so I found the size that I wanted, and that's what I'm using here today. So you can see that I have almost almost all of the stamps from the You're a Hoot stamp set in my MISTI. And I'm stamping them out on it's just some Nina Classic Crest 110-pound paper, and I'm using VersaFine Onyx black ink. So I stamped those up and I set them aside, and now I have my card panel that I already have die cut, and I have my oval. Now I want my color to kind of trickle down the page, top left, middle right, bottom left. So I'm starting in the middle on the right because that's going to have, that particular oval is going to have all 3 of my ink colors. So I started out with the Stargazer, then I stenciled the Trippy Stripe, and then I brought in some of the Slumber on the top left of my oval, and the Regal Kiss on the bottom left, because I just want, like I said, I want the color to kind of trickle down the page, if you will. So I started with the Stargazer, added the Slumber to the top left, added the Regal Kiss to the bottom left, and that puts all 3 colors in that oval, and I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know downstairs and I'll try to explain it a little bit better. So here I am on the top left adding color to this oval, and here I'm using the Slumber because it's more of a blue, and I'm stenciling on the Sailor Stripe. Now again, you can turn your stencils in any direction, you know, whatever orientation you want. So when I did the Trippy Stripe, I did not have pixie spray on it, and I had a little more trouble getting it to, well, to stencil properly because the little stripes were wanting to move around. But I remembered to put the pixie spray on for the next 2. So this one again is called the Sailor Stripe, and it has pixie spray, and when I get down below, the chevron also has the pixie spray. So I put color down in the oval, then I stencil over that, then I add a little more color again. Unfortunately, the top left one with the Sailor Stripe, the color is so subtle and these inks fade back as they dry. So once it's dry, you barely see that Sailor Stripe, but you still see the wonky stripe and you still see the chevron. So I'm really loving this color. This is called the Regal Kiss. All 3 of these ink pads are from Pink Fresh Studio, as you can see there on the screen. I love my Pink Fresh inks. Love them. And I'm loving these stencils as well. Sassy and Crafty has some very fun stencils. You guys want to check them out. A lot of them are very unconventional. You're not going to see them anywhere else. So I don't know if you could tell, but some of my ink, as I was cleaning off my mask, got onto my card panel, so I needed to clean that up. So I just took my mono sand eraser and it cleaned it right up. So you can see it there on the left. You can see those stencils very subtle in the background, and here I have started painting in all of my images and details, and I'm just using the ink pads to paint. I have lots of watercolor mediums, and this is not even watercolor paper, so I don't want to add a whole lot of moisture to the paper because it'll buckle and pill and all of that. But I'm just using some Distress Oxide. I want to say that's Vintage Photo. And then there are a couple other browns from Pink Fresh. I believe I have Warm Buff and Gathered Twigs there. And so I'm just nothing fancy. My painting here is nothing fancy. It's not extremely detailed. It's not even extremely neat. I'm not doing any shadowing, any detail work, any highlights, nothing. I'm just laying down some color. And I do go in a little bit, like with different shades as it dries, because you know, if you lay down color on top of color while it's all still wet, it's just going to blend. You know, it's not gonna separate and layer and make those details. So I do add a little because they're owls, right? So I thought, well, they should have a little bit of texture anyway. I don't know how successful I am, but anyway, in the end, they're just cute because the artist did all the work, not because I'm an amazing painter, because that is not the case. So to paint in the details, I use those same 3 colors of ink from Pink Fresh, the Slumber, Stargazer, and Regal Kiss, and that just keeps my whole card really monochromatic. And I feel like even those purples have kind of a, or I'm sorry, even the browns have kind of a purpley hue to them. At least in person, in real life they do, or maybe that's just my eye trying to convince my brain. I don't know. But yeah, so I painted in the scarf, I painted in the glasses, and I'm painting in the hat, all just using those 3 shades of ink and letting it dry, adding some layers, you know, just trying to give the details some detail, if that makes sense. So the glasses I did not show, but I painted them in using the Slumber, and I even put a little bit of paint over the lenses to make it look like light reflecting. And so here I am bringing in my embossing pen because I felt like my owls just needed some texture, and the trees, the bark, the branches needed some texture. So I wanted it to be like a physical texture. So I brought in that embossing pen and I poured my Vintage Photo embossing glaze over it, not the embossing powder, but the glaze. Again, it's translucent, it gives it some texture, it gives it some shine, some added color, and just some interest and detail to the images. So I did that to the owls as well as to the trees. And now I have my Inktonic Pens from Arteza. It's my set of 24. And I just wanted to add some detail, right? I didn't necessarily want to stamp anything else. And I don't know if you noticed, but I don't even have a sentiment on this card. I will figure out what I want to say when I figure out who I'm going to give it to and what the occasion is. But for right now, I just wanted some more detail. So I just go in with my pens. I draw the circles, kind of an outline around each oval. Not circle, they're ovals. I know my shapes. And I find a pen that's very close in color to the circle that, or gosh, the oval that I'm highlighting, that I'm detailing. And I just make some kind of sketchy lines. I even go in with the black fine liner, and I make like some stitching marks, some hash marks, some X's, just different little marks just to add some detail and some interest. And again, that texture, all of those things that I love so much, I'm trying to add some of that interest that you would get on like a collage or a mixed media card without doing a collage or a mixed media card. So in fact, this for me is, it's not a 1 layer, clearly, but it's about as close to a 1 layer as I might get. Excuse me. So again, just going in with those fine liners, adding the detail. This time I'm bringing in the black, or maybe it's just a dark gray. I do both. It depends on the oval that I'm working on. But I wish you guys could see it in person, because these little details really add a lot to the card. And even though they're on the background, and the background is just that, right? It's the background. But it adds so much detail. It makes the owls and their perches just kind of stand out that much more. And one of the things that I love about the branches in this stamp set is once you cut them out, well, even before you cut them out, you can stamp them in any direction that you want. And you'll see here in just a minute, I start working on my placement, you know, how I want my branches, where I want them perched, that type of thing. And it's just fun. You wouldn't think that that little 7-shaped branch would be so versatile, but it really is. But of course, before I could place anything on the card, I had to fussy cut them out because my scanner and I still are not getting along, my scanning cut. But I don't mind fussy cutting. And I have these great little haberdashery shears from Tim Holtz. And it just makes the fussy cutting so easy. Now you'll notice, if you can see, I'm cutting off the detail from these sweet little owlies. They have like curly hair and tendrils coming off of their feathers and things, and I'm cutting all of that off. A, because that's a nightmare to try to fussy cut and I could never do it justice, and B, once I get everything laid down on the card, I actually stamp the images on the branches where they're going to be perched, and then all that detail is there behind the image that I lift up off the page. And that'll make sense in a minute as I get to adhering everything down. But because I fussy cut and I had stamped on white paper, they have that white edge, and I don't like that. Now, if I had purposefully left a white trim around it to be essentially a frame, that's a different story, but not in this case. So I just go in with my Sharpie and I color in those white edges just to give it a more finished and clean look. So here is where I'm trying to figure out my placement. I'm sorry that that bottom oval is off screen. I didn't realize that I was down so far on my work surface, but you can see the different ways that I'm able to put these branches, and it doesn't seem like a big detail, but that adds interest, right? So each owl is perched in its own way, and I love it. So here I have all the branches glued down, and I'm coming in. I figured out where I wanted each owl, and I'm just stamping it. I don't do the free range stamping very often. That's what Kathy Zilski calls it when you use an acrylic block instead of your MISTI, free range. But I thought in this case, excuse me, in this case that would be fine, because all I want is the detail around the outside, those tendrils and those curly cues and things, because they're adorable, and that adds so much interest and character to these cute little owlies. So I've lifted them up after I stamped right on the panel. I put them up on some fun foam, or no, some double-sided foam tape, and I'm just adhering them right over the stamped image so that you don't really see the stamped image, but you still get to see the detail, the curly cues and things. Aren't they adorable? Oh my goodness, the artistry on these owls is adorable. Now I didn't have to add the embellishments, you know, the accessories, but I just thought that it gave them a little bit more character. And here I'm making a mistake. Can y'all see what I'm doing? Can you see what's missing? So I'm putting down my crystal glaze, glossy accents. I always get those two confused. But I didn't have my panel adhered to my card base yet. And of course, when I use liquid glue, I need to have something heavy on top of it so it stays down while it dries. But I had already done my glossy accents, so I had to kind of work around it, push it down myself, and put some heavier things on the edges where there were no glossy accents, because I didn't want to stick fingers in it. So there it is. There's the card. You can see in the top left on that one how subtle that sailor stripe is in the background. It's because the inks dried back so much, which is one of the features that I love about these inks, but I didn't compensate for that. So you can see the stencil really well on that one, and then the chevron is back behind her, and it's not as easy to see just because she fills up a lot of the space. There's my kitty making himself known. So guys, this is Nancy the Handy Scandy. That's my card today, and I'm here with Sassy and Crafty. I will be back very soon with another video for Sassy and Crafty. We'll see y'all then. Thanks. Bye.